be calling tonight's action with Jeff Nelson, and that is Ryan Ruocco. Ryan, thank you so much for giving us some time before you call tonight's action against the A's. Let's dive right in, buddy. We saw that at bat with Juan Soto a couple days ago where he was struck out and there was hardly a strike thrown. Has the time come, Ryan, for an automatic ball and strike system?
You know, I don't know if it has, Chris, because I think that there's still some questions as to how reliable that system would be, and I think there'd be other issues people would have when they saw certain strikes called or certain balls called that looked very different than what they've been used to for years. But I am for a challenge system. You know, we see that throughout the minor leagues. I think that's a way to correct some of the egregious mistakes, also to be timely with some of the mistakes that you want to challenge, and add a little strategy as well, right? Because even if you look at challenges throughout, whether it's baseball or football or basketball, when you put it in the coaching staff's hands, right? In this case, the manager's hand or a player's hand, and you say, all right, here's the allocation, use them as you like, then even if there is a poor call at some point, you don't feel completely robbed because you say, hey, if you had used that challenge differently, maybe you would have had this moment to use it, or maybe you should have used it now and you didn't. And I think it's a way to still keep the game moving, and I do think it's still a way to keep the umpires in the game and also keep us away from maybe a system that wouldn't be quite as great as people might think with total automation. So I'd like to see the challenge system, and that I would like to see soon.
Yeah, let's keep AI away from baseball. It's invading everything else. We don't need it in baseball, Ryan. How about John Sterling, the legend, called it quits recently, and I was just wondering if you had a favorite John Sterling call. We heard Susan Waldman say it was burn, baby, burn. What was your favorite?
You know, I actually, rather than a call tied just to a specific player, although I did love the burn, baby, burn, I could think of two moments. First of all, David Wells' perfect game, and listening to John and Michael call it in the final inning with John as I was waiting outside my car about to run to my soccer game. Warm-ups were almost done, and I'm standing outside the car with the radio turned up, leaning on the car, my dad's old white Subaru, and they're like, Ryan, you got to come. The game's starting. I'm like, there's 2 outs. I got to wait. And listening to John call the final out of David Wells' perfect game. And then the other would be Jason Giambi's grand slam in the rain, May of 2002, his, you know, welcome to the Yankees moment after they're down in the 14th inning. And a couple of my friends and I, a couple guys that played baseball with, Paulie and Al, we had gone to see Star Wars Episode 2. And we went into the movie. The game was, you know, I think in the late innings. We came out of the movie. The game was still going on, and driving up in my neighborhood thinking, oh, they're going to lose this extra inning game, and then listening to John's incredible call of the Giambino as he hit that grand slam through the rain.
Yeah, I was at that David Wells perfect game in the loge of the old place. That was phenomenal, a phenomenal game to watch there live. Now, let's go stick with baseball, but we're going to take a couple of your basketball analysts, and I'm going to make you choose, and you have to choose one, okay? If you had to choose an analyst, a partner to do a baseball game with, would it be Richard Jefferson or Rebecca Lobo?
Ooh, that's tough. That's tough. Now, Chris, if it's a home game or a road game matters here, because if it's a road game, we just have to worry about Richard getting there. You know, Richard usually doesn't know when his flight is until he arrives at the airport, the gate, the airline. I don't know how he gets the information, but he doesn't know it when he gets out of the car at the airport. So if it's a road game, definitely Rebecca. If it's a home game, I think we can go with Richard just because he is the kind of guy who you could just give the mic to, let him go, and he's going to come up with incredible content. I mean, just look at all his social media channels, and you know that to be true. And obviously, we know it to be true at Yes. But they are both they're both wonderful, and I do thoroughly enjoy not just my experiences on air, but off air as well with both of them.
Yeah, that's a great political answer there by you, but a very good answer. What he's saying is absolutely the truth, folks. Caitlin Clark, you did her national championship game. You saw the best team team in women's college basketball in South Carolina, completing their undefeated season. And you saw the phenomenon that is Caitlin Clark. What is her entrance into the WNBA going to mean for that league, Ryan?
I think it's hard to state, Chris, because every time we think we have the metrics pinned down on Caitlin and her effect on this business and on ratings, she blows them out of the water. You know, going into that LSU rematch game with Iowa, we thought, oh, you know, they may approach the national championship number from a year ago, 9.9 million. Then that game gets over 12 million viewers. The draft does more than the previous 6 drafts combined. You know, this is the Caitlin effect. She came at the exact right time where there had been incremental growth and steady development in the women's game, and people more and more have appreciated the product and appreciated how incredible these women are, both on and off the floor. And Caitlin's the star who lit the match and has the entire scene on fire in an amazing way. So I think we're going to feel it in the first week of the season in this area. You know, she plays May 14th at Connecticut, making her debut. She plays May 18th here in New York. She plays in Brooklyn at Barclays Center against the Liberty. And, you know, remember, in college, they don't have courtside seats. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see who's sitting courtside in Brooklyn for that May 18th game, because people really haven't gotten a chance to do that yet with Caitlin. And what I love about Caitlin, it's almost the way I used to feel about watching Mariana Rivera, where you know how great she is, and yet she delivers every single time. And that's Caitlin Clark. Every time she takes the floor, she delivers. There'll be a little learning curve, but I think she's going to be a really good player right away.
That's a great point by you with the comparison there with Mariana Rivera. Now, let's move it back to baseball. Since you brought up Mo, now, you know my ridiculous knowledge of 80s movies and everything that goes along with, especially with sports movies, by the way. So a bunch of people here at Yes, a couple weeks ago, we came up with this idea. We need to make a fictional movie roster. You see it on the screen right now. It was the 35th anniversary of Major League, and this is what we came up with. So I want you to go through this, Ryan, because you're very astute at this. You're a great baseball player yourself. So give us your little wrinkle on this.
Well, you know what? I like the lineup you put together. I did study it a little bit earlier today, looking for any tweaks I might make. You know, I might have the I forget what his name was in Little Big League, but the kid who was the manager, who was the owner and manager. I might have him as my manager, because he did a terrific job with a Twins team that was not going to come near the playoffs if it wasn't for the push he made as manager. And then I also think I'd want De Nunez from Sandlot, the pitcher.
Oh, nice, yeah.
I think I'd want him in my rotation. He's a guy who, look, he didn't have the perfect mound conditions. You know, there were times he was dealing with all kinds of obstacles on the fields that he would play on, and yet he delivered when his guys really needed it. So I think I would have him in my rotation as well. Maybe he's not your game 1 starter, but De Nunez gets the ball at some point during a 7-game series.
It sounds like every field I played on when I was a kid. We called my high school field the Pit, for crying out loud. Okay, last question for you. It's a trivia answer to our earlier question earlier on in the show. There are 3 baseball names in the Billy Joel song, "We Didn't Start the Fire." So do you have an answer for this?
Oh, man. Joe DiMaggio's one of them.
Bingo.
Joe DiMaggio's one of them. Yeah, Joe DiMaggio. I'm trying to think of the other names in it, and and I love Billy Joel. I love Billy Joel.
Who doesn't?
I can't think of the other 2 names, Chris. I wish I could. Do I get the answer now?
Yes.
Let's see. I'm gonna. Oh, yes. I was thinking Mantle.
Yeah.
Mantle was going to be my second guess. I just didn't have the courage to pull the trigger. And then Campanella, I did not remember that he had Campanella in there. Yeah. So I should have gotten 2 out of 3. Instead, it's 1 out of 3, and I have a failing grade.
I'm very disappointed. I thought you would see that graphic and start rattling off the lyrics and sing it.
You know what? I wish that I felt as comfortable singing as I do calling games, but I'm not quite there yet, Chris.
Well, you do a tremendous job doing that, and we look forward to the call with you and Jeff Nelson as the Yankees wrap up this series with the A's. Thank you so much for your time, Ryan. We appreciate it.
You got it, Chris. Always good to be with you, man.
All right, let's take another